I think we're ready to go.
Good.
So Andy, do you want to get us started?
That's great. I'm going to try and do that then. So welcome everybody to the end of the our conference. Hopefully you've managed to stick with it and you've managed to get on this. We've got a panel of people who are engaged in local leadership and estate ministry, and Lynn and I are attempting to moderate this and to grab some of the questions which have come out. So I'm going to start off with a question for the panel, and if panel just want to sort of introduce yourself if you are answering a question, and just sort of step in and do this. So hopefully that will work okay. So really good question to start with is, how as estate churches do we help local people have the confidence to be leaders? How as estate churches do we help local people have the confidence to be leaders? So don't know who wants to grab that one and go.
I'll go first then.
Ricky, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Ricky Sandyford. I'm the mission apprentice in the Diocese of Birmingham. We was talking about this earlier on in the day in our groups, that confidence is the most important thing, I think, to bring people on, because you're dealing with people that have had their what could I say, their where they're going to go and their aspirations kind of quashed, and their confidence is really low. And one of the keys, I think, is to build people up, and you do that by the Gospels, by giving them self-worth, by remembering that Jesus holds them as just as important as anyone else, and that in Christ they are worth something. And that is the way that you can get them to spread their wings, believe in themselves, and break kind of the shackles of the geography of where they were born and their past sometimes, and the things that they've done, the things they think they've done. And I think confidence is the key to unleashing most of the gifts of the Spirit. I think making people realise how important they are biblically, and that God loves them, and that their concerns are his concerns, and they are valued. And that's got to be the starting block for all of us, but especially when you're dealing with people that are fragile and marginalised, and getting them to trust establishments as well, like the church. People on the estates tend to have a very dubious kind of approach to the big establishments, and trusting the church is important in that journey, I think.
Especially if you suffer kind of imposter syndrome, as you said before, Ricky. You know, I think many of us feel imposter syndrome within the kind of church structures. So that was really helpful.
Anybody else want to have a crack at that one?
Yeah, I'll go with that. Sorry, Andy. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm really aware of is, for me, it's kind of around this idea of identity. And where is it people find their identity? Is it in the things that they do, or is it simply rooted in the fact that they are a child of God? And so it's kind of a little bit of a discipleship thing there, of looking at where their identity is, alongside this idea of equipping and training as well. So the course that we do in Darwin or in the Blackburn Diocese looks first of all at personal transformation. Who are they in God? What is their relationship like with God? What's the prayer life like? What's reading the Bible looking like for them? And really kind of helping them to do that themselves. And then from that, we go into learning about how we actually then go out and do things such as mission and evangelism. But it all starts in that personal transformation and understanding their own relationship with God. And then once they've got confidence in their relationship with God and confidence in their identity as one of his children, that stands them in really good stead then to go out and do stuff in the mission and evangelism module that we do.
Thanks, Rob. Anybody else got any immediate thoughts on that?
I come in, Andy? That's all right.
Indeed, Steve, yeah.
Yeah, sure. No, complete support what we've heard. And in our small groups, we were talking about, you know, often many of us learn by doing first, then reflecting on what we do, and that's how our discipleship can grow. And I think I'd really plug as well in terms of building confidence, it's about resourcing and training. So, you know, as well as NECN, there's other great organisations around at the moment with lots of resources, Heart Edge, Urban Life, Livability, I can go on. And if you check them out, there's so many resources there which can instill confidence by, you know, learning. But also, you know, it's about leadership for what, and you know, we can unpack that. But in terms of our church-led community works, they're professional community development works as well. And I'd plug Luther King House, where anybody here watching can go and do some courses, a short course, diploma, degree, which is also about competence as well as confidence for community development. It's a profession as teaching and social work is, and confidence can come by being equipped and skilled.
Thanks, Steve. We've had one or two questions which I think might link into this a bit, about how we do church and how we raise leaders up post-COVID. Obviously, with the lockdown, it's harder to get together, and you know, there's all the issues about, you know, some people can get together digitally, and then other people are excluded, you know, and which is, you know, we'll know from estates particularly about that. But I'm wondering too about how COVID might be raising up local leaders in our communities or in our churches, and how we might spot that. I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that. Helen hasn't said anything yet. I don't know if you can hear us, Helen.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I think for me, it's about looking for people exhibiting leadership in other areas where we can't meet as church together at the moment. Where are other people leading? So for us, we've seen people really step up and take a lead in a new food bank that we've started. And then we've seen other people take a step up and lead in doing food distribution on the estate, and then bringing others with them who aren't in any leadership to do that with them as well, which is really exciting. So they're enabling others. So I think for me, it's about looking broader than just our gatherings, because most of us can't have gatherings at the moment. Personally, we're finding difficulty. So we're doing church on small WhatsApp bite-sized videos. And we're having issues getting our local leaders to actually do those, where if we were gathered together, they'd speak at the front of church, but actually they're not so keen to do a little video. And so just working that out now, what are the things that they could do as well. So looking at maybe just readings and stuff like that, rather than the more creative stuff that they normally do.
Thanks, Helen. And I think there's also something very interesting at the moment, I think, about the growth and the springing up of all those little kind of unofficial mutual aid self-help groups. I think if you live in a street in the country which isn't being served by somebody who will do your shopping or get your prescription if you're locked in, you're quite unlucky, because there's loads of those springing up. Yes, and I think that's really going to be something interesting in the future, actually, to recognise that kind of really unofficial, you know, quite anarchic leadership that's springing up, and people who can do stuff like that.
But it's about space, isn't it? So COVID has given space for leaders to step up, because everything is dispersed now. So yeah.
Great.
And also there's something in the benefits that we've seen of doing church differently. You know, COVID has forced a pace of change in the church that is pretty much unprecedented. And actually there have been blessings in that. So what does that mean for what new forms of church and new ways forward might bring in terms of blessing? Andy, I've got one. Can I just ask one about the challenge of church membership? So somebody like Sarah might like to come in on this one. from Alison, a question: what do you do about the challenge of your church membership on an estate not being reflective of the wider estate community, and what does that say in terms of the potential for local leadership?
Yeah, it's a challenge to bring some of those people in, and maybe it's about not seeing church membership as the people who turn up on Sunday, but as the people that we connect with during the week. And when we use the language of including those people as part of church, they see themselves as it. We used to do something like Messy Church. It was just called Messy Wednesday. And it was, people felt like they were a part of that and started to call that their church. And I think when we open up the opportunity for people to belong to something, then it's broader than what happens on a Sunday perhaps, and broader than just the people that we traditionally included. So and just about helping them to use the language of being part of and yeah, belonging.
And I'll say something, it's also about changing what church is, because a lot of people think church is only your Sunday service, and that's not true. Church is all the other things that happen around it, the fellowship, the getting together. I run a men's group, and one of the men in the group says, "Oh, you'll never get me coming to church." And I said, "I hate to tell you this, but you've been coming to church for the last 6 months, because this men's group is church."
Yes, yeah.
And it's kind of refining what is church. People do think church is only your Sunday service, and it's not. It's everything that revolves out of the work of Christ. It's the whole bundle, and getting people to understand that the Sunday service is just a part of church. The fellowship and being in community is just as much and just as valid.
Yes, I love the little story from a state church who had a local choir in their church, but because of COVID, they've gone online to do it. But the local radio picked up that story, and suddenly they've got a massive community in church choir because folk who had nothing to do with church before want to sing and join this. So are they members of the church or not? You can debate that, but in terms of involving a wider community reach from the church, it's great. And there's lots of examples like that. It's just one.
Great. Another question, which, or I'll sling a few questions together, and apologies, we've got questions coming from all sorts of places, and also we can't see them all, so we're trying to do our best. But there's two questions together, really. One of which is, it's all very well having things like the schemes we've talked about, the learning pathways we've talked about, but shouldn't we be doing it anyway in all of our churches? And to connect that up to one which is a bit more of a challenge to the wider institutional churches and the denominations, which is too often barriers to traditional training are laid at the feet of the person who wants to be the participant and not at the feet of the learning provider. How can we affect change within traditional learning routes to accept their responsibility? So it's a question about access, really. Shouldn't the sort of traditional bits in the church that raise up, form leaders, the theological colleges and seminaries and all the other training courses, shouldn't they be able to give access to people who come from estates? Why are we having to do separate stuff? Don't know if anybody wants to have a go at those first of all. Bit of a googly to bowl at people. Jonathan, you've suddenly appeared on my screen. Granted at the wrong time. Anybody want to have a go at answering those?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now you go.
Sorry, go on, Jonathan.
I was talking to the guy who's in charge of the training of people here in Southwark, and I was talking to him about how, right, to do a course, you have to think, I can do every single Tuesday for 3 years, and it's an hour away. And I was talking to him about, well, 80% of the church are on shifts. They're on I don't know, contracts, 0 hours. You can't tell you what they're up to next week, let alone in 3 years. Because if you have a choice of you eat or you go on a course, you eat. I mean, you work and eat. And he hadn't realised, not a clue. You then add in it sort of costs sort of, I don't know, 15 quid to get in and out of the centre of the you know, to where they train, and it's totally out of their reach. Now, out of that chat, he's rethinking what they do, but I think you have to actually go to the people at the top and say, have you actually thought this through? Because there is a reasonable chance that they've that they have honestly not. Anyway.
Thanks, Jonathan. Anybody want to come in on that at all? Rob?
Oh,
yeah. So I think the only thing that I'd say to answer the kind of the first part of the question of, you know, these projects are great, but shouldn't the church just be doing it anyway? The answer quite simply is yes, the church should be doing it anyway. But history tells us that the church isn't doing it anyway, which is why we've needed to have these things set up in order to release urban leaders into what God's got for them. And secondly, to answer the second part of the question in terms of access to training, yes, I think a lot more needs to be done, but I do think that certainly within the Church of England and the noises that I've heard being made, there are big steps being taken in order to make access for all a lot easier. With the different things, you know, I know that they're changing the way that you do the BAPs now, coming up in the next year, aren't they? And I know that our diocese are making changes into recognition for people that are doing different courses as well. So things are moving. I think there's still a long way to go, but I think we're taking the right steps forward. So yes, you know, yeah, there's kind of a mixture of answers there, I suppose. They're slightly negative, but there's the positive side of it too, that the church is moving forward and changing around these. And we just need to keep being vocal about the changes that are being made, I think, in kind of, you know, annoying our bishops and the hierarchy of the church, saying, come on, have you thought about this? You know, in the same way that Jonathan has done recently. That's so important.
Can I wade in there as well? Is that all right? And yes, of course, I mean, I agree with everything everybody said. And yes, of course, the local church should be doing it. But actually, we often need some fire starters, some kind of catalysts to get things going, don't we? We need some kind of pioneers, the first wave of pioneers who will bring us some examples out that actually then we, as Jonathan was saying, going to the hierarchy is actually important as well. So to actually to be able to say, you know, to the guys running things, this is what it looks like, but actually also to say to the guys in our local churches, look, these guys are just like you. If they can do it, you can do it too. So I think that first wave of examples is always important, and that's why I think it's really important we've got these schemes going on. I do think there's a move of God in the nation about training up local leaders. and having estates represented in leadership and not people from non-academic backgrounds. And because you're seeing it from everywhere, everybody's talking about it at the moment. Everybody's making little steps forward, and we will get there eventually. We do though have to keep our foot on the pedal. We're not there yet, and actually we have the stories to tell, and wherever God opens a door for us to tell the story of what he's doing amongst his people on the estate, we have to take that opportunity. And you may well find yourself in a place and you think, why am I here? Well, you're there to tell other people's stories.
We've got a really interesting tweet from Peter Howard in Norwich, just saying, every time someone attempts to set up a more bottom-up way of formation, in time it gets sucked into the professional learning.
Yes,
I think that's something to sort of guard against as well. Steve?
Yes, well, no, I picked up, I think, from your bit this morning, Andy, about, how it becomes domesticated, and I've got so many good friends who were brilliant church employed youth workers, family workers, children workers, and now they're great ordained, etc. But they could have been great, professional youth workers, social workers, teachers as well. And it's that bit about what are we training these leaders to do, and I think we've all shared stories of how we just need community development workers that have a real passion for the local communities they're part of and can empower others to take on that leadership, the assets that are already there in the communities. But surely it's about recognizing, we're fortunate in the United Reformed Church, community development is a ministry as an equal par as ministry of word and sacrament. And I've worked for two Anglican dioceses, and the frustration is that so often community ministry in itself isn't seen as a valuable ministry. So yeah, I think there's a whole bit about domesticating that training.
I think it comes from confidence as well, Andy. Confidence in the people in the estates that they can be leaders, but confidence in the teachers that these people can be trusted. And I think it's breaking that kind of that mold of people can aspire to it, and the people above can trust them to do the job. I think it's confidence from both sides, and it's like that trailblazer thing that you were just saying earlier, that it only takes one to show it can be done, and the floodgates are open. You get one black bishop, you'll get lots of black bishops. You get one urban leader breaking through, you'll get lots of urban leaders breaking through. It only takes those trailblazers to give the people below them the confidence to say, that person went to a school like mine, that person lived on a street like me, and suddenly it becomes really relevant to them. And they start to think, well, maybe I can too. And then it's the confidence from the people above to give them that chance and to trust them, and that stops it from turning around the model, because that's what happens. It only happens because there's confidence in the beginning, and that confidence wanes, and they feel the urge to take over, to make sure that it's done properly in their perception. It's having the confidence to see the project through and just see what happens, see what these people do. And when explorers used to go and explore far off lands, they'd always take a native with them. It makes sense to use local people. It always does.
I love that image. That's brilliant. Andy, can I ask a couple of questions that have come in on the YouTube chat? So a question from Callie, and then one from Ray, that kind of touch on the same areas, but take us on a slightly different trajectory, really. So regarding help from the wider church, what do you see as the advantages or disadvantages of kind of a mother-daughter church model versus small independent churches on estates? And in a similar vein, Ray's question, I'm interested in top tips for planting from a bigger church into an estate. So a couple of slightly different questions there. I don't know whether anyone's got any particular thoughts on either of those.
Can I wade in there again? Sorry, I'm being a bit gobby.
No, please do.
I think if you're planting from, so I planted from a big resource church into an estate, And actually we're not self-governed, so we don't have our own PCC, but we are self-led. We're not self-financed, because most of the people in our congregation are either unemployed or on very, very low income. And so our resource church views it as given away mission. They don't expect bums on their seats, but we are self-replicating as a church. So our church plant is now planting out another church. But to Ray's question as well, I think it takes a really good relationship with the resource church, and a certain amount of maturity as well. And knowing that, I think the resource church needs to know that the estate church will be different. It will still hold the same vision and values, but the vehicles it uses will be very, very different. It will look different when you go to a gathering of it, and that's okay. And they need to see it as given away mission. They're not going to get bums on their seats with it. So I think that's important. But that question about should we be going for small multiples or planting, mother-daughter planting, I think we need everything. Let's be honest. There are, hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands and thousands of estates with no worshipping community of any form on them, that people who don't feel that they can access maybe their local church because the physical distance or the social distance in it. So really, we need everything. And on a big estate, actually, maybe one church isn't even going to cut it. Maybe we need multiple worshipping communities that can be led by lay leaders as well. And I think that there is there's something about what we're asking people, our local leaders, to lead, and a staged approach. I was listening to a talk by an Indian guy called Divas, and he was talking about when people first become Christians, actually, they let them plant fellowship groups. So they don't wait to train them and then send them out. They're allowed to plant fellowship groups straight away, and they learn as they go. And I wonder whether that's a bit of a key for us, that we need all things. So let's not just push people to be thinking kind of big top-down church plants. Let's be thinking small as well, fellowship groups and stuff like that.
Brilliant. Can I just, sorry, can I draw us to a close there? I think we could probably go on all afternoon, but we do need to wrap up because we're concerned about we might lose the feed. Thank you so much. I mean, I love that phrase that Helen used, giving away church. And actually, in many ways, we've got to give away leadership as well, haven't we, on our estates? That's absolutely key. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you to the broader group for your participation. You will receive a link for SurveyMonkey. Please tell us what you've thought of today. Please do feedback. We want to shape NECN in a way into the future that meets your needs in terms of supporting estates ministry. So please do complete that survey form and send it back. And finally, I've got a lovely job. This has been really hard to organise, and Christine McAteer, our support officer, has. Andy, can you see your wife anywhere?
She might be lurking. Do you want me to let Barty in?
Could you just shout her?
Barty. I've shouted her. Something's
Andy,
happening.
we want you to present to you our gift as a board of trustees. Here's Barty, primed and ready. Yeah. Thank you, Barty.
Lots of things to give. I've been told to come in at a certain time. On behalf of the trustees of the NECN, I have to give you, shall I start off with the card?
Please.
So I have to open everything.
Yeah. Oh, we may not get time for you to open everything, but just show us the card. Emma's drawn the card together.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
I'll do that later on. There's some fantastic pictures from a while, and lots of words from you, which I'll read later. We'll go quickly because otherwise this will be like this is your life at the end. There's bike lights, which is always a good thing.
Useful. Yes.
Something which is sealed up. Apologies for this. What's this? Looks like it's a voucher for something. Sorry,
it is. So you've got a range of gifts from us as a board of trustees to convey our love, sincere thanks. You've been so instrumental in pushing forward advances in estates ministry, in urban ministry more generally. And I think we'd all just like to say a huge thank you and every prayer and good wish for you. Thank you so much, Andy.
Hey, thanks, Andy. And thanks, Lynn, as well. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Just to say, well, this is wonderful and unexpected and a bit overwhelming. So thank you very much. It's been a blast being involved in an NECN. And we've done a lot together. It's not just been me, it's been a real team of people working together. And we, you know, if we were at the conference physically, you'd see them all, but it's just been, you know, it's been great. I'm leaving you in good hands because the Board of Trustees are fantastic. And also, just to say, with the new role, Canon Missioner at Birmingham Cathedral, a big part of that's about urban mission. So I won't, you know, obviously I need to behave myself and particularly not get in the way of whoever my successor is, but I won't be a stranger. So I'll shut up at that point.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much to everybody who's come along today. And can I just say a final thank you to Rob Sutherland, to Emma Ash, and to Sarah Barrett, and to David Greenwood, who put all of this online so brilliantly. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. Safe journey home. Bye.
Thank you to Lynn. Thank you, Lynn.
Bye now. Thank you, Lynn. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Don't get lost.
Bye.
There we go. Where are we? Where are we?